Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the NFL draft is fastly approaching, and looking back to last year's draft, Brad Holmes did a phenomenal job in year one, getting talent, getting starters, and getting players for the long-term future. But one place where Brad Holmes really excelled in last year's NFL draft was day three, with some of those sleeper prospects that not everybody had their eyes on, that not everybody had on their boards, but Brad Holmes did the research, Brad Holmes went through the effort, and Brad Holmes found a few gems on day three that turned out to be pretty impactful for the Detroit Lions, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was arguably a top 5 wide receiver from last year's class, despite going at pick 112. Derek Barnes may not have been the most impactful starter, or may not have been the most impactful linebacker from this class, but showed a lot of flashes in preseason, showed a lot of potential on just 30% of defensive snaps played a season ago, and still put up some very solid numbers. And then Jermar Jefferson had a very good average for a player that was selected with the 3rd to last pick in the 2021 NFL draft. So when you look at all of these things, right, yes, they may not have gotten 3 Pro Bowlers with their last 3 picks in the draft, but they got contributors, and they got very good value for day 3 of the NFL draft. And today I want to talk about a couple more sleepers that could fall in this year's class, guys that you may not have heard of, guys that will not be on everybody's big boards, and guys that will not have the national recognition of an Aiden Hutchinson or a Kayvon Thibodeau, but guys nonetheless that can come in late in the NFL draft. I'm talking picks 177, pick 200, far into the 7th round, that can come in, compete, and even be impactful playmakers for the Detroit Lions in year 1 and for the long-term future of this rebuild. So with all of that being said, and without any further ado, let's get on to the 2022 NFL draft class sleeper list. Now, starting off, we are staying local at the University of Western Michigan, where Ali Fayyad, the edge rusher / outside linebacker from Western Michigan, looks to be one of the most productive and one of the biggest sleepers in this year's class. Now, I'm going to read you some statistics, and I'm going to tell you that this is the production that he put up at the collegiate level. Ali Fayyad, standing at 6'2", 250 pounds over 4 years at Western Michigan, put up 159 tackles, 53 tackles for loss, 28.5 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. He was quietly one of the nation's best producers a season ago, and last year really put together the pass rushing moves to go along with his tackles for losses. He had 3 seasons in his collegiate play where he had more than 10 tackles for loss in an individual season. Never really had the elite sack or the elite pass rushing production until a season ago where he put up 12 sacks at Western Michigan. He was an extremely dominant player in the MAC, and I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you come from a low Division I school like Ali Fayyad. I don't care if you come from an FCS school, a Division II school. I don't care if you're coming out of Division III. If you put up these kinds of statistics and show the tape that Ali Fayyad put on at Western Michigan, you are somebody that at least deserves recognition in this year's NFL draft class. And based off of his production alone, Ali Fayyad is a draftable player, projected as the 316th overall player in this class and ranked as the 31st edge rusher in this class. I can guarantee you there are not 31 edge rushers that are better than Ali Fayyad from Western Michigan. He is somebody that will likely be available in the 7th round, maybe even into undrafted free agency, but he could be an absolute gem and could come in and be the Max Crosby, right? Be that guy from the small Michigan school that put up elite production at the MAC conference level, comes into the NFL, works his tail off, and just becomes one of, maybe not the premier defenders in the NFL, but one of the more recognizable and one of the and one of the hardest working and productive defensive linemen in the NFL. He's not necessarily, as far as like skill wise or as far as like talents and abilities, I don't think he matches up with Max Crosby very well, but as far as just the storyline of being a small kid from a smaller Michigan school, right? Didn't go to state, didn't go to Michigan, put up really good production at the MAC conference level, and will likely go late in the NFL draft. His story reminds me a lot of Max Crosby, and I think he can develop into what Max Crosby is right now for the Las Vegas Raiders, being a hardworking, tough to stop, and just uber energetic pass rusher that never quits on a play, and based off of just pure effort, gets pressures and gets a lot of sacks for his effort. Now, getting on to the second player, we are going over to the offensive side of the ball as we are talking about the first wide receiver today in Oklahoma State's Tay Martin. Now, Tay Martin played 4 years of collegiate football where he put up 238 receptions, 2,810 yards, and 28 touchdowns. Tay Martin is a currently projected undrafted free agent, as he is projected somewhere in the 300s as far as overall ranking, and is currently ranked by many as the 44th wide receiver in this year's class. Yes, we are going deep into the positional values of this year's draft as we are looking at wide receiver 44. Tay Martin put up over 1,000 yards a season ago with Oklahoma State, not having necessarily the greatest quarterback play or the greatest offensive cast surrounding him. Tay Martin was a standout at Oklahoma State. He was the primary wide receiver one, and at the Shrine Bowl, he was one of the stars. I do believe Tay Martin will be drafted. I do think he will be taken somewhere in the late 6th, early 7th round of the NFL draft because his combination of size, speed, technique, and has some pretty strong hands tells me that he is a draftable player. And I think he could be this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Maybe he's not the fastest, maybe he's not the biggest, maybe he's not even the best at creating separation or have the strongest hands, maybe he doesn't have the biggest range, maybe he's not the best at any individual statistic or category, but Tay Martin is just an all-around very good football player that likes to compete and has shown in the past that he can produce at a Power 5 school. So with that being the case, Tay Martin being the wide receiver 44, going very, very much under the radar, I think is a prime candidate to be a selection of the Detroit Lions if they wish to double up at wide receiver late into the NFL draft after taking one relatively early, if that is the route that they end up going. Now, heading back to the defensive side of the ball and heading back to the defensive line, we are going to talk about another defensive lineman from a school that really isn't being talked about a whole lot. This player is Ioma Uzuzuriki. Now, not to be confused with Uzuzuriki, this player is a defensive lineman from Iowa State. Now, Iowa State's defense was not the highlight of their team, right? Iowa State was primarily highlighted in the media by Brock Purdy and Bryce Hall, right? It was the offense, it was the big plays, it was Matt Campbell, it was the staple of Cyclone football at Iowa State. But one player that I think is going very much under the radar in this year's class is, as I said, Ioma Uzuzuriki, the defensive lineman from Iowa State. Standing at 6'6", 320 pounds, he produced 146 tackles for the Cyclones, 34.5 tackles for loss, and 15 sacks. He's currently projected to go somewhere in the early 6th round of the NFL draft, projected as the 207th overall prospect in this year's NFL draft, and projected positionally as the 19th defensive lineman in this year's class. Now, he is projected under interior defensive lineman, and although I think the Lions' interior defensive line is a very good foundation with guys like Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, and John Pennicini, I do believe that Michael Brockers will continue to take a step backwards as far as production and play style, and I do think the Lions would be wrong, or I do think they'd be in the wrong or not maximizing their value if they were to pass entirely on the defensive line in this year's NFL draft. There's a lot of really good defensive line talent, and I do believe that Uzuzuriki from Iowa State is one of the better sleeper talents in this year's class. Again, this kind of production at a Power 5 school without getting any recognition, without really being talked about a whole lot, putting up 34.5 tackles for loss and 15 sacks is not anything to scoff at. He has very good size for the defensive line. He's incredibly strong and has very good power with that size. And this is a guy that you can pick up in the 6th. This is a guy you can maybe even pick up in the 7th round. And he's going to come in and compete and likely get some rotational pass rushing reps with the Detroit Lions next season. Now, I do want to mention I do expect Ioma Uzuzuriki to take a big step forward next year, but you can never have enough defensive line rotation. You can never have enough defensive line talent in the NFL. And if all else fails, I do believe this could be a really good pickup for the Detroit Lions in the 6th round of the NFL draft. Now, the last player we're going to talk about is likely somebody that you have heard of, but I don't think that you know him as well as you might think. Nephi Sewell is, of course, the younger brother of Penei Sewell and the older brother of Noah Sewell, all of whom will likely play in the NFL by 2023. Penei Sewell was the number 7 overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft a season ago, as he was the offensive tackle from the University of Oregon. Noah Sewell, their younger brother, is projected to be a top 50 pick in the 2023 draft as a linebacker out of the University of Oregon as well. But one brother that is going very much under the radar is Nephi Sewell. Nephi Sewell is, in my opinion, being talked about only because of his brothers. And I don't think he's being talked about enough for what he did at the collegiate level. At the University of Utah, he produced over 251 tackles, 21.5 tackles for loss, 5 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 6 passes defended. Nephi Sewell is projected to go somewhere around the 250 to 275 range and is not even currently ranked as a top 15 and in some cases even a top 20 linebacker in this year's draft. I think the only reason people know his name is because of Penei Sewell, and I do believe a lot of Lions fans only want him because of his brother's success, and I think they only want him for the storyline of reuniting the brothers, but I want him for a different reason. I think he could be a missing key for the linebacker position. Right? The Lions linebackers last year did not have a lot of pass coverage success in the way that Nephi Sewell did at the University of Utah. Again, coming away with 5 interceptions at the collegiate level and 6 more passes defended is not an easy feat for a linebacker in the Pac-12. You put on top of that the 22.5 tackles for loss and the forced fumbles and fumble recoveries. This is a uber productive player coming out of a Power 5 school that is being underrated because he's not a top 5 or a first round pick like his brother was and his other brother is likely to be. The Lions have an opportunity to double up at the Sewell position, at the Sewell pick. They have an opportunity to draft the second of the 3 Sewells into the Lions organization, and maybe, just maybe, they could draft the third one in 2023. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Those are my 4 sleepers for the NFL draft class. 2 defensive linemen that were super productive and are going undervalued in this year's class. 1 wide receiver that continues to make plays at a Power 5 offense that just continues to go unnoticed. And, of course, the younger brother of former 7th overall pick Penei Sewell, the uber productive linebacker from the University of Utah. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Be very curious what you guys think about these sleepers and what sleepers you have of your own. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!